Hey, Chris,
Hi,
how are you?
good. I'm going to be putting you in a breakout room, David,
Okay,
with the other poets. So just a minute here.
okay.
There we go. So if you just join that, that'd be perfect. Thank you.
Chris. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear you now. Okay.
Yay, great.
All right.
Yeah, I wasn't, I didn't have myself mic'd before because I was trying to run the slideshow. So welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to see you all here. I am going to turn my light on because suddenly the sun went somewhere. And welcome to our big celebratory reading here for Trio House Press. We're very excited to be releasing 5 books on one day. And I think that this is the first time that's ever happened. So it's kind of a landmark day for the press. And we're so excited that all of our authors were able to make it here today as well. So I thank you all for being here today and for helping us celebrate this wonderful occasion. I have today here with me Natasha Kane. Natasha, do you want to wave and say hello? Natasha is our acquisitions editor and marketing editor. And without her help, none of these books probably could have made it to fruition. So thank you so much, Natasha. In addition to being an author for us, Matt also helps lay out some of our books and helps with production. So thank you, Matt, for all you did for this as well. And of course, none of these books would have come into existence without Tave Neese, the former head of Trio House Press, who we are in great debt to, who just did an amazing job of helping choose these books and getting them through the process of the editing process and into print. And so thank you, a big thank you to Tave and to the countless interns who also helped us do this. It's a big team effort here at Trio House, and I want to make sure everyone knows that a lot of different people had a hand in these books. But of course, the authors were the ones that created these beautiful works of art, and so we're really excited to have you share that work with us today. So I'd like to begin today with Jennifer Manthey. Jennifer was the winner of last year's Trio Award, and her book, which might look backwards depending on my view here. This is it right here, The Fight, is just an amazing piece of poetry. I just absolutely love it. I've gotten to hear her read at our debut event here last month, which was absolutely fantastic. And so she has a short bio that I found in the back of the book. I also coincidentally knew Jen before because she was an intern with me at Normandale as a teacher. So she's a wonderful poetry professor as well. And I just think the world of you, Jen. So I'm really excited to hear what you've chosen to read today. Jennifer Manthey is a writer and teacher. She lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota with her husband, 3 children, and 1 Saint Bernard. So take it away.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm going to start today with a poem called My Son Sings in Church, because it's Sunday. So we have to choose somehow. My son sings in church. Barely 3, how he walks the long aisle, white choir robe puffing around his small body. How he enters such a large word, sanctuary, a holy world of adults. Heavy pews in rows like teeth, shaking notes of the organ. How he approaches a marble altar of unimaginable weight. How the windows arch high as the cloak of a villain. How his eyes widen and fight tears. How brave the child above my son. His open mouth halos my son's head. How my son leaves in a line toward the safe cave of church basement. He eats his animal crackers, drinks his juice. No one tells him yet that it is blood. No one tells him it is flesh. All right, and next I will be reading the title poem of this book. So it's called The Fight. My son's principal calls on the day of his first fight, first grade. A boy pushed him out of line and my son pushed back, pushing, then hitting. They are 6. A white boy's father might say, "Good for you, standing up for yourself." My husband says, "There are injustices coming all the time. Sometimes you have to be the bigger man." My son cries in bed, "I'm a bad boy and I hate America. I hate what I can't stop it saying to my son." Outside our window, a dog passes on a leash and our dog goes wild with barking. I don't bother to stop her, her nose and teeth crashing at the glass. All right, and then the next poem that I'm going to read is called I Meet My Child's Birth Mother. And the thing that makes me love poetry the most is the way it can hold complexity without asking for a correct answer or a completely satisfying resolution at the ending. So in this case, in this poem, I found that the poem could hold one of the emotional truths of adoption, which is the absolute wrongness and tragedy of it, as well as the love. So this is called I Meet My Child's Birth Mother. She says, "This is what I want," and the embassy coughs us out like questions. There's traffic and the sound of bells. I see her sorrow waiting in deep pools of collarbone. Her smile is a hook in my skin or a kind of marriage. I leave her, return to my blank room where the moon comes out like faith, cool and distant and changing its shape. I escape her like a mine I fear will collapse. My hope is dusted off and still. "Yes, this is what I want," she says, and her words float in air like ash or a song. All right, and then the last poem I'm going to read is called Minnesota Nice. And I chose to read this because it's a summer picnic poem and it's picnic season. So several of the poems in my book kind of want to explore the ways that niceness can benefit whiteness and the ways that being quiet and agreeable can also be really harmful to marginalized communities. So this poem just begins to touch on that. So Minnesota Nice. At the picnic, everyone but my son is white and the food is predictably bad. The woman who owns this house stands straight-shouldered and sleek as a bike. She points toward the plates. My son stands alone next to the folding chairs no one is using. I bring him a hot dog he doesn't want and a can of soda he does want. The house is large and well-positioned. The yard run through with weeds. Along the back fence, iris grow in bunches like teen girls, heads burst with new beauty. Conversation hangs humid in the air until one man says this social justice movement is getting exhausting. What more do they want? A woman next to me has new shoes and I admire them. Another woman's arms are as thin as I'd like mine to be. My son steps cautiously into a circle of children he's never met before. They hand him the smallest water gun. He runs toward the creek, his knees like 2 polished stones. That is it for my time. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to hear all of the other readers. Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. We really appreciate it. I am pleased to introduce next Matt Mauch. Matt, I have known Matt since 1990. And so it would take forever for me to introduce him if I were doing it. Thankfully, he sent me a bio, and so I will, let's see, I need to put you down there so that people can see you. There we go. Matt Mauch is the author of 5 books, including A Northern Spring, this newest one. He founded the Great Twin Cities Poetry Read and the journal Poetry City, and has organized and hosted many other poetry readings and events. A recipient of a Minnesota State Arts Board grant, Mauch's work has been recognized as a finalist for National Poetry Series and other national and international contests, and has appeared in numerous journals. Mauch lives in Minneapolis and teaches in the AFA and Creative Writing program at Normandale Community College. He and his books can be found online at mauchmauch.com. And take it away, Matt.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm going to read from A Northern Spring. Looks like this. This book opens in Derry in the north of Ireland. I was there at the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020 when Trump announced a travel ban. I was doing some research for a study abroad class that looks at the troubles as a way to see violences in the US. So the book has 4 sections called preludes, which are all about the 4-5 days in Northern Ireland. We weren't sure if we're going to make it home. And they're packaged as these text messages to an unnamed P from an unnamed MM. And then in between are poems, pandemic-based poems. And then I close with a coda, which covers the last week of May in Minneapolis of that spring of 2020, when George Floyd was murdered in South Minneapolis, where I live. So I'll start with the first prose section. Wednesday, 10:35 p.m., 11 March 2020, Derry, Northern Ireland. P. I am not sure if you are receiving my text, nor I all of yours. I am up later than the rest, like a good old kitchen light. Gale force, for the record, is too hackneyed to do justice to the pounding that Derry is receiving from the big indifferent. The braggadocio we Minnesotans have regarding our changeable weather has been rendered impotent here by the temperamental ravaging of all this near the sea-ness. Praise be to this old brick building in which we have rented enough rooms to stretch our legs, etc. in. It is unmoved and unswaying, a secret member of the wind's sect perhaps, or dare I venture that the lintel of the entrance is marked. Wednesday, 11:05 p.m. I just read in The Guardian that dear leader has announced a travel ban for everybody in Europe. Bless these reporters trying to clarify what he means. They are like an underground ready to rebuild once the armistice comes. They are saying to a source that the ban goes into effect at midnight tomorrow, all carriages then transformed into pumpkins. My feeling is not anxiety, but something halfway between the dull clock watching one does when proctoring a final exam and the suppression of expectations one engages in upon hearing you're a finalist, but that the judge needs more time to make a final decision. I sit here trying to do my best imitation of this lovely brick. Thursday, 8:31 a.m. More and more, the troubles seems to be the perfect lens through which to see better our own violences, fractures, and feuds, the spades of domestic terrorism we seldom call out as such. And more I have the sense that the expansiveness of our geography, our sea to shining sea-ness, is what keeps us from descending into open and perpetual conflict with neighbor and kin, as well as from facing what we need to face if any of our mottos and creeds are to be anything other than curriculum. I'm going to read a poem or two, and then I'll close with a short prose section from the ending. This is a pandemic poem called Which Recluse to Recluse I Have Named Emily Dickinson. A dead branch in the belly of the tree, hanging straight down while the other branches reach, just some tree skin holding it in place, as if ousted, as if refugee. Branch that you have to be standing in the right place to see through the gaps in the leafy green, to acknowledge with your eyes the wish you share with it to change the world as it is. This is not a music video. The branch is not a lemon. I am not on sale. This is an offer of clemency at a happy ending that is also a blind beginning. The knowing branch, as if dethroning this era of fencing in for the public I am about to return to, has given me a piece of corduroy to rub with, to get the many, many masks I have both been issued and have adopted freely off my face. You will never see the me you think of as me again. My face is becoming all light. This poem is called As If I Had Been Visited by Bees. Again, it's another pandemic poem. The veteran garbage man trains in with a plum, a new hire. Rendered in pencil, it could be called necessary work. It could be called study in the acquisition of grace. One demonstrates, another tries to replicate, as if learning the steps of a dance. I'm moved like I'm moved by the occasional and well-conceived dramatic episode in a serial comedy. Before I was moved, I was repeating a phrase. My new mission is reconciling. My new mission is reconciling. Now that I've been moved, I'm trying to flower. Okay, I'm going to close with a short section with that coda from the end, the last week of May 2020, following the murder of George Floyd by the Minneapolis Police Department. And the book also sort of comes full circle because after that happened, there was a mural painted in Belfast and also a vigil held in Derry, which is when I knew this was a book. So a house in South Minneapolis, the last week of May 2020. A dumpster fire is burning in the center of an intersection a block south of Lake Street. Like it's a distributary channel, Lake Street being reports indicate the primary thoroughfare of flame. It's the kind of dumpster a landlord sets behind an apartment building to collect the weekly trash for all the renters whose initials and last names fit in the small rectangles above the rows of mailboxes up front, mailbox setups that have always reminded me of mausoleums. I watch from a 3-season porch with all the windows, double hungs, open wide. On the various screens where I watch it, television, laptop, phone, the dumpster fire scene looks like a party. There's a general sense of joy. It is not unlike the sort of misbehavior and property damage that revelers would think long overdue on the streets here if the Vikings ever won a Super Bowl. The revelers remain a block south of Lake and are thinking not campfire, but bonfire. A filling in the blanks part of my mind is trying to see the people still inside the apartments, trying to see those in bedrooms, in basements, in the single-family houses and duplexes from which the receptacles have been repurposed. Is it better to keep all the lights on or turn them off? Is this like a tornado such that one is safest in the lowest interior room with thick walls and no windows? I imagine the children, the adults trying to calm them, the older children joining the effort already changed. I think of the fear that perhaps only the refugees among us have antecedent for, the inheritors of transgenerational trauma trying to understand a vaguely tingling sense of deja vu. What was a block south of Lake Street is moving further south. Everything I have read regarding the desire of the white power movement to foment strife and eventually civil war, to come together when the time is right, feels like it is happening here, like Minneapolis has become a gathering place. The street that the traveling bonfire that seems less and less like a party is coming down is mine. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was fantastic. I feel like every time I hear you read, I hear something else in what you're reading. So it's really exciting to hear that. And I especially like that last one, especially because of what's happening now, you know, as we keep going through stuff here in Minneapolis. Our next reader is from Seattle. It was really exciting to go to AWP and see Seattle for ourselves and experience it and get to meet Lena Khalaf Tuffaha there. Her book, Khan and Her Sisters, which also has, I think, an amazingly beautiful cover and it is just incredibly inspiring. Here's a little bit more about Lena. Lena Khalaf Tuffaha is a poet, essayist, and translator. Her work has appeared in The Nation, New England Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, Poetry Northwest, and Southern Humanities Review. Her debut collection of poems, Water and Salt, won the 2018 Washington State Book Award and was a finalist for the Arab American Book Award. She lives in Redmond, Washington with her family. Thank you, Lena.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with all of you. Congratulations to everyone on our books launching together. How exciting. So Can and her sisters, the title comes from a kind of a phrase we learned as children learning Arabic grammar. Can is an Arabic past tense verb, and we learn that particular group of verbs as a sisterhood. And so that lens of the feminine and the past being braided and of sisterhood runs through, I think it's an important thread that runs through all of the poems in the book. I'll start with a poem that I think maybe describes the originating wound for a lot of the stories that this book tracks. The word Nakba is the Arabic word that Palestinians use to describe the loss of our homeland and the beginning of exile. What happened next? The timeline is teeming. Nakba unlocks the gates. From our house, my father carried the suitcase and my mother carried my youngest sister. She stopped only twice, to nurse her, then days later, to bury her beneath a carob tree. Time opens the gate. Another sister was born in the first camp where we took refuge, and some parts of my mother too, though she buried her eyes on the road. A line repeats. The Nakba is teeming with locks. They became what they sought and were never granted. My father dissolved and my mother fed the mourning doves. She stopped only once to grieve him. Then, days later, she walked us past the snipers. Nakba repeats itself. My love grew up in the second camp where we waited. This was the era in which we fought to return. Let the teeming. My love was sent out to sea, and the others, what can I tell you? The earth of the camp was too thin to cover their corpses. We repeat. It always looks the same. Lines of us walking, carrying smaller parcels, structures folding in on themselves. Repetition is a Nakba. An accord rears its head when we meet the necessary measure of rubble. And they took the rest of the men in trucks through the gates. My love has no address to reach us. Nakba petitions time. My mother buried, and before her, my sister. Only once, though, if the first burials suffice. And then I have a B poem too that I know has some fans at Trio House, so I'll read that today. There's a singer who's beloved across the Arab world, Fayrouz, and she's a Lebanese singer, but pretty much in any Arab capital city in the morning, if you turn on FM radio, you will hear Fayrouz songs. So in a way, in the 70s and 80s, and even in the 90s, that music was sort of the soundtrack of our lives. And those songs are also a theme that run through this book. Miss Sahad listens to Fayrouz sing The Bee's Path. If you're going to go, if you're going to scorch this heart and leave a desert in your absence, tell me now and I'll follow the bees. If you're going to scorch this heart, I'll hem the horizon in solitude. Tell me now and I'll follow the bees inside the anemones scarring the hillside. I'll hem the horizon in solitude, the light lengthening, breaking inside the anemones, scarring the hillside. I'll spiral beneath the dome of the sky. The light lengthening, breaking this moment gathered around us as I spiral inside the dome of the sky. Spring is a ravishment, forever dying, dying, dying. This moment gathered around us is honey and wild greens and the promise of ravishment forever dying, dying, dying. We're just another love song, remembered or forgotten. Honey and wild greens and the promise of losing you in the desert of what happens next. We're just another love song, remembered or forgotten. Will you stay until the anemones fold back into the land? Will you stay until the anemones fold back into the land or leave a desert in your absence? Are we just another love song, remembered or forgotten? Tell me now, and I'll follow the bees. Let's see, decisions. I think that I should read you a Can poem, since I told you that Can is an important part of the book. Sorry, last minute change of mind. Okay, Can and her sisters consider the past. Once upon Macan they gathered, Can and all the verbs that revel in negation. What did not happen to us, what had not taken place, these were the subjects they raised. Can and her sisters were born for lamentation, for dividing time and denying its work. Miss Sahar taught us about this family in Arabic class, the somber sisters of story, and how they tell by taking time away. Once upon Macan, they walked through the market, and the woman selling grape leaves called to them from the ground where she sat, and the girl making tea called to them from the window of her house, and the man selling sesame loaves called to them from his wooden cart, Macan this our homeland? Once upon old time? Macan an end to this story? Once upon Jerusalem, the boy gathering stones called out to them, Can a poem on this wall, but they keep trying to erase it. I hear the words calling out to me, if I do not burn, and you do not burn, then who will light the way? Thank you.
Oh, that was fantastic, Lena. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I pronounced it wrong. Okay, our next reader is David Groff, who I believe his first book with Trio House, which was his second book, was one of the first books ever published by Trio House. And so it's really an honor to be publishing this next book of David's. His bio reads as follows. David Groff's previous book, Clay, was chosen by Michael Waters as winner of the Louise Bogan Award and published by Trio House Press in 2012. Was that right? I think, yeah. Mm-hmm. His first collection, Theory of Devolution, was selected by Mark Doty for the National Poetry Series. He completed The Crisis of Desire, AIDS and the Fate of Gay Brotherhood for its author, the Robin Hardy. With Philip Clark, he edited the anthology Persistent Voices, Poetry by Writers Lost to AIDS. With Jim Elledge, he edited Who's Your Daddy? Gay Writers Celebrate Their Mentors and Forerunners, which received a Lambda Literary Award. An independent editor, book, and publishing consultant, he teaches in the MFA and Creative Writing program of the City College of New York. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Chris, and my thanks to everyone at Trio House who has made this book possible. It's been a wonderful experience. And my thanks to my fellow readers today. I'm so glad we're all converging. This is my book, Live in Suspense, and that the poems in it all have something to do with the tension of not knowing what's coming next and imagining that and kind of proposing that we all live in that space. We all exist waiting for the next mortal thing to happen. And the first of the poems that I'm reading is an imagined event, really, that actually occurred in Minneapolis, or south of Minneapolis, as I was driving on the highway. Something that I witnessed that created an imagining, and you'll hear that in the poem. Dead deer. Bolt thwarted vault, late break, gasp of impact, tembler of thud. The beast drops on the blade of hood. Ribs rip from their roots, heart seize. The windshield goes dark as an eyelid, curtaining to a horizon of blood, black glass laced with lightning. I am hit with wheel, steel, dough, embracing me backward as speed crushes me forward into a bursting hug, sternums to spines. Past last words, no extra second to follow the plan, to tell God I am sorry. No foxhole repentance, no appeal to the fate maker, my sentence incomplete, a fragment, a run-on, no scenes spun out so fast that the brain convulses with conclusion and love. I do not even think of you, give no torn word for you to live by. I mesh corpse into carcass. I am dead, dear. I leave you my velocity, and there at the edge of the road, I give you my fawn. This next poem is a love poem of sorts. One of the things I realized as I was putting this book together is that I have a lot of animals in it, a lot of bugs for one thing, stink beetles and crickets and others, but also birds, and as you'll hear in this poem, a dog, sort of. And I'm not really a doggy person, but sometimes these creatures just trot into your poems, and that's what happened here. This poem is called Infinitive to Clay. To yelp for no food, to beg just a little, then to loll, to get noticed by a master who, to get you to roll over, flicks two fingers. Too much to think about too long, the verb thing of uninflected unattachment, taken out of agency, away from object, not at one with the sentence with its sententious intention, yet in an infinite syntax, all sideways figure eights, a sort of square root, but still subject to being a subject, or simply a modifier. To live, to be unbound by living, is to sate a hunger to hunger, to say stay, to act as your own act, to lessen deficit, but be satisfied split, to unite the day and untie tomorrow, to let joy's joy, to tether for yourself togetherness. There are a number of poems in the book that are suspenseful and have the word suspense in the title or lurking around it. And this is one of those. It's called Suspense. And you'll hear an echo, I think, from the first poem I read, sort of the same imagined situation. Suspense. Building this bridge, they died, venturing into the pilings, then rising inside caissons too fast. Their lungs exploded. Through dying, they taught their survivors the science of pressure, how humans might measure, defy, and heighten their depths. From these gravestones hangs the swaying weight of suspension, the waver of roadway, the roar of undulation that, in a tension with vibration, a flaw in the aeroelastics, a flutter as in the atria, in some perfected resonance, can send the structure down. As will happen, my car and I plunging into seconds of suspense, piercing New York Harbor, pausing to consider what it means to float, then descending into a building darkness, then definite darkness, becoming within, the bay a human place, my capsule of car and body unsuspended and resting, the rightful water seeping and then sweeping in before the divers arrive to pluck me back to the sun, my heart bursting. And to finish, I'll conclude with a short poem, and it's you'll hear a bug in this. A friend asks me to pray for the soul of his dead brother. The flying cricket in a frenzy of chirps sketches my halo. Maybe it harps on me as the mate it aches for, or else I hinder desire. It blurs like a hand making the sign of the cross too fast and too long. Finished, it spins off into September cold, a thread, an echo. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, David. You know that was my favorite poem in the collection because I told you that a bunch of times. So
Yeah.
what a thrill that you ended with it for me anyway. I'm sure I absolutely love it.
Thanks.
Our final reader today is Sunshine O'Donnell. I'm so excited to meet you, Sunshine. I feel like we've corresponded, but I haven't seen you in like virtual or regular reality before. So this is really exciting for me. Sunshine's book, States of Arousal, was chosen as the Louise Bogan Award winner this year. Ed Buckley was the judge for that contest. And I forgot to mention Eileen Casanetta was the judge for the trio award that Jen won. Sunshine just sent me an updated bio, so I am going to read it now. Sunshine is an 8th grade teacher, writer, and parent. Her novel Open Me was a Barnes & Noble Discover Great New Writers selection and has been translated into Dutch and Hebrew. O'Donnell's nonfiction work includes the board book Your Vacation on Planet Earth, an anthologized selection in W.W. Norton's The Best Creative Nonfiction, as well as hundreds of newspaper articles, including 2 human rights series honored by the Keystone Media Awards. As an essayist, O'Donnell's work has been published on Powells.com, awarded Isotope Magazine's First Place Prize, and won the Tennessee Writers Alliance Creative Nonfiction Prize. Throughout her 20s and 30s, O'Donnell taught creative writing and art to children in residential placement, mental health facilities, and shelters for the unhoused, publishing literary magazines created and edited by youth in the DHS system. Since 2013, O'Donnell has been teaching middle school in Pennsylvania, and this is her first book of poetry. So welcome to poetry, and thank you so much, Sunshine.
Thank you. I can't get over how nervous I am about this, and I'm going to actually start reading the one poem that not one person suggested that I read, but I feel like it does kind of set the tone for the whole rest of the book. All right, and this takes place in 8th grade home base, and it's called Lockdown. Oh, actually, I think I have it on screen. I can do it this way. It'll be a little easier. Okay. Where are we supposed to go if we have to run away from the school? The first question of the day from an 8th grader whose mask is crooked and deliberately perched beneath his nose, the only kind of defiance he allows himself now that the curve is flat, but he's breathing so hard, the blue paper soaks wet. Yesterday, we learned loss of innocence, and he had wanted to know if it was a good or a bad thing. Today, the TikTok challenge is clear. National School Shooting Day is this Friday. The children crowd me like pigeons. Your classroom is like all glass. There's literally nowhere to hide. In a Quaker school, our days are punctuated by wholesome silences, illuminated by real photons from the sun through unbarred windows, precious. After decades of teaching in basements and concrete blocks, Philly public schools with signs over each water fountain, do not drink the water. Here's the new lock, I say, with a huge bolt inside. No one can shoot through. I show them the 30-pound typewriter by the door, the birthday cake knife, all of the things I know how to weaponize. I say, I will not let anyone hurt you. They don't believe me. They're always suspicious now. Aren't we the same adults who gathered them unmasked on March 12th, said, we'll see you soon, and then watched those words drag like ridiculous glaciers for months? Haven't we told them what they will inherit? Heirlooms of plastic and poisons, antibiotic soil, a corona of space trash halos the planet. What if we hear the shots while we're playing outside? This is a Quaker school in a town where roads get salted and buildings repaired. The police do not patrol halls between classes. The only litter we see are masks discarded or dropped. I tell them We run to the meeting house. That's our safe place. But I don't know if this is true. I don't know if anywhere will ever seem safe again. They were in kindergarten when Sandy Hook happened. We did not tell the babies that babies had been killed. They're not surprised anymore. Last week's school shooting, no one noticed. Famous grown-ups debate online, angry about the gender of cartoon candies. We say, pay attention. We ask, what do you notice? And they tell the truth. Everything is broken. But this boy is not broken yet, only scared. I tell him again, fix your mask. I want to say, it's all broken, but you are light that does not break. Instead, I show him a closet good for hiding in, a table, a desk, and he nods, but his breathing does not slow down. We need drills, he says, please, and walks away, shifting into a role that does not allow for fear. He can hide beneath humor and hoodies. I've seen him camouflage sadness this way. I foolishly wish a cocoon to protect him, a magic spell to repel virus, bullet, harm, knowing that all of the losses are already transcribed into every cell. I'm going to read What Ache the Pistons because Haley, my editor, said this was their favorite one. What ache the pistons and stamens, not requiring a slap or friction, but the small concentrated buzz of wings and mandibles gorging. Such public genitals, shameless on the kitchen table, slatternly petticoats dropping and forgotten as they die. To have underskirts that were once alive and then aren't. For humans, this would mean surgery and illusion, silicone petals and synchronized falling, and none of it covered by insurance. But the boys buzzing and frantic nosing into parts, this they would cover, a stimulant green and worth more than gold. Gilding noses and wings, hysterical because they are too old for the lovely dusts, the sticking down into ladies' parts and relishing it, setting up camp among all the folds and furies. Little do they know, these Boy Scouts of the rich and fermented, that almost rotten is the moment when things are most sweet. They nuzzle like dogs into the offering, grateful but not knowing why. Lost in the pistons, the stamens, the sticky reality of things, because all they have to give in the end is half a plan, not even the best plan, just one plan from billions, and never knowing which is going to win out, and probably not caring either way. Such small, slow brains, such lost, slow vertebrates, even the brightest, even the sweetest, these sad and safe lost boys, even our sweetest of sons, even they will never know. Okay, and then there are several pieces in this that are kind of like patches that have been kind of stuck together in like a quilty formation. And so they're easier, I think, to read than to hear, but I'm gonna try with this one. This is called How Can You Survive the End of the World? You are warmly invited to come and listen to the answer. This is a story about obliteration and the fear of obliteration. Quick note, 99% of the life that has lived here is already gone extinct. Striated crusts of failed and forgotten organic technology. You cannot save the planet because it does not need saving. It is just trying to get rid of us. By the way, the vicarious thirst that you feel is coming from the house plants. So please water them so we can continue. Raising children in a culture of obscene excesses, pathologically overfed, food, water, sun, too much nourishment of any kind can kill you. The survivors of crisis extinction always evolve new forms, and we wonder what ours will be. We would like to sense sonic waves and heat and fear, or perhaps, like the platypi, the electric twitch of prey's muscles moving underwater. One thought about screens. You've no doubt by now found the blue pill portals branching wormholes and black holes and rabbit holes dug by addiction specialists. You may come and hide in here without any worry. You may take us to bed, to the toilet, to the car. We will distract and delight and horrify. This is not a story. Where will you spend eternity is an inane thing to ask while we binge and leave such luxurious waste in our wake. The better question might be, is this just a gross legacy from the first mass extinction of our single-celled forefathers who pollinated and ate and, sorry, there's a curse word in here I'm realizing at this point. Is it okay? I should just keep going with it? All right. Is it just a gross legacy of our single-celled forefathers who colonized and ate and shit so much oxygen that they killed themselves off? Frequently asked questions. 1, do you seek to find the savior, become the savior, or liberate yourself from the savior? 2, are you waiting for permission, approval, or forgiveness? 3, do you drive a car? Do you water your lawn? Do you buy flowers? 4, where are they grown? 5, who picked them? And 6, how did they get here? Wanting, then having, a cannibalistic universe knows eternity is already here, no matter what we eat.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful to hear you read. Thank you. Okay, so I have one thing I can't forget to do, and that is announce the winner of our Pride Month raffle. We were raffling off copies of both Clay and Live in Suspense, David's 2 books, like a set. And the winner of that, her name is Mary Peelan, and she is from San Francisco. And so I will be mailing her books to her in the next few days. A couple of other developments, as you all know, we're the team at Trio House, we're trying some new stuff. We're moving into some new directions. And one of those new directions, poets, is that your books will be available in ebook format. Yeah, I know, isn't that exciting? And I believe that will be done by the end of the month. We ran into, the holiday delays with business days and things like that. But I think for sure by the end of July, wouldn't you think, Matt, that would be reasonable to say? Yeah. So people will be able to buy your book in both regular print form and ebook format. It's now available everywhere. You can order it off of, I would recommend bookshop.org because they're running a sale right now. You get a couple bucks off the book if you order it there right now. But you can order it from any online place or your favorite local bookstore. If you do order from bookshop.org, you can actually choose your local bookstore to benefit from that sale too. There's a way to toggle that on that site. So that's why we tend to recommend it, because we like to support our indie bookstores across the country. So we also have our authors are going to be having launch events. I believe Lena had one June 30th, I think so, on the eve of the book coming out. And I know that all of you have events planned. So if you're watching this and you want to catch a local event in Minneapolis, Philadelphia, New York, Seattle, and maybe even beyond those places, please follow us on social media. We always push out events, whether we are involved in them or not. If our authors have posted it, we will repost it and we will let everyone know about more readings, and you can actually meet these writers in person and maybe get a signed copy. That would be absolutely wonderful. And we'd also like to thank everybody who is attending on YouTube. We will be providing a video of this on YouTube after the event, so that people who couldn't be here today can actually view it. So we're very excited about that. I've been kind of monitoring the chat, and our wonderful intern Talia has been moderating the chat today. So give her a little bit of a hand. Thank you, Talia. I just wanted to say, are there any questions that any of you have for each other. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I'd be interested in knowing, is there anything that you want to comment on or ask of the group?
Well, I have a question if I could ask the poets. I'm so interested in like writing habits, because I feel like all five of you have your own unique writing styles. And I'm wondering if you have particular writing habits that you implement, such as, early morning, late at night. Maybe I only write when I'm not teaching or I'm not editing. I'm just curious about your writing habits.
Maybe we have to pick somebody to go first, Natasha.
David, would you like to answer my question first?
Sure. I'm still trying to figure out my habits. I think my life is kind of run by editorial and semester deadlines, and often poetry can be in that space as well when there's an urgent sense of a reader out there, like a writing group, my poetry writing group and others. And also reading other poets gets me into thinking in lines. So if I allow myself reading, then I can often kind of be, segue once either inspired by their poems or otherwise into thinking in a lineated way that will end up ideally being fun and surprising and make time go by. But usually that's late at night, after the day is burned out.
I can answer next. I would say I don't have like a set schedule of writing just because I have 3 kids at home. There's always kind of a lot going on. I would like to be more scheduled than I am. But I will say when I want to write or want to think, the best things that I can do are to go for a long walk or vacuum my house. Those are both spaces that walking, vacuuming, they don't take a lot of mental energy. And so that mental energy can go towards thinking, and really, I think writing is really just thinking. And also, I won't be just like disturbed by people who need things.
Well, I can share a practice that I just shared the other day in a class I taught, a generative poetry class, because I too have sort of a, all over the place schedule. I am a mom and I don't necessarily have the kind of life where I can write at the same time every day all year long. And I noticed that when I come back to writing, sometimes I'm thinking too directly and I need to kind of get out of that. And so I have this thing that all my writing students know called the word bowl. And I hoard words. I don't know if you can see this in here, but I literally, as I'm going through my day, every day, whether I've written anything or not, I notice words, and I love etymology. And I just will scribble a word down that I've heard, even if I already know the meaning. I might have liked it or noticed it for its sound or for the context in which I heard it, and I gather these words. And so if I can do nothing else, I've hoarded some words for the day. And then when I come back to my desk, I have a kind of a spiritual practice that I've developed, which is I have to pull 5 words from the bowl, and they go in a horizontal line at the top of my journal. Maybe they get used and maybe they don't, and maybe I just look them up, but it's almost this like mantra thing that happens that I enter into the writing space. And the rules are that the words can never be used again. They're done. And then I have to just replenish the bowl. So that kind of little thing that I've developed helps shift my brain into, oh, I'm now in writing mode. I'm doing something different and my brain will work differently. So feel free to steal that if it's helpful to you.
Okay, I'll go next. I think a lot of what we do all throughout the day gets into our writing, and a lot of you have said this, thinking, walking, late at night, etc. So much, it's hard to really say that, but I am one of those who have made it a practice to at the beginning of my day, whenever that is, to get up and somehow work on my writing. And I use that word work on very broadly. It can be reading, it can be looking at something I've written. It always involves reading somebody else's works before I look at my own works, but I always try to make time, at least an hour every day before the rest of my day goes on, to do that, because then I feel like I have done what by doing that, anything that happens to the rest of the day is better than it would have been had I not done that.
I do not have any kind of writing practice at all. And and I hate to admit that, but it is true. I think right now what's happening is I was unable to go to grad school when I was in my 20s or 30s or even 40s. And now in my 50s, I'm doing it. And so I'm doing this massive amount of writing for that. And then a massive amount of writing for curriculum and for school. And so I'm a little bit tapped out if I'm working on anything for myself. And when things arise, they just kind of arise. Like it's there for me. And I feel like I'm very lucky that those things are available. But it's also a little bit feast or famine for me. I mean, this is the first manuscript that I've written since 2006. So, which also was one of those, here it is in its entirety, take it away. And so I do know that when that happens and I can feel it sort of coming up, that my job at that point is to make space and time so that I can get it out and objectify whatever it is and examine it. And then if I need to manipulate it and play with it a little bit, I can. I wish I had a more formal practice, and maybe someday I'll do it.
Well, I don't know about you, Natasha, but I found all of those ideas inspiring, and I have to say, Sunshine, I have gone through long periods of my life with no writing practice, other than kind of like, instead of vacuuming, I would drive, and then I would leave myself really long rambling voicemails. I've and then try to make a poem out of it later, which wasn't always successful. But yeah, I think, we can ask that question, but in the end, we all have to find our own way into it, right? And I think as poets, that can change actually over a lifetime as well, because when your kids are little, they need a lot of different kind of attention than they need when they're older, for example, and that kind of stuff. So, but thank you all for all those great ideas and inspiration. I am so excited to have these books out officially into the world, and excited for all of you as you share your work with others. Those of you who are on YouTube, Talia has graciously put links in the chat to all of the books. So you can go straight there and order them if you like, or, if you're having trouble finding them, or you want the link straight to the discounted books on Bookshop, you can check us out on our social media pages or just directly message us. We're happy to send those to you. So thank you all for coming today. And thank you all, poets. I'm going to end the stream now. And if you poets want to just stick around, we can have a little chat